Maria was 73 years old when her daughter convinced her to attend a free health screening at the local community center. She considered herself reasonably healthy, took her medications for blood pressure and cholesterol, and lived independently in her own home. At the screening, a physical therapist asked her to do something that seemed almost too simple to matter. He wanted her to stand up from a chair and sit back down 5 times as quickly as she could, without using her hands. Maria laughed and said that sounded easy enough. But when she actually tried it, she struggled. By the 3rd repetition, her legs were shaking. She had to pause before the 4th, and she barely completed the 5th, taking nearly 18 seconds total. The physical therapist's expression became serious. He didn't alarm Maria, but he strongly encouraged her to follow up with her doctor and consider starting a strength training program. Maria was puzzled. It was just standing up from a chair. How could that possibly matter? 2 years later, she'd ignored the advice and experienced a fall that resulted in a fractured wrist. After she'd noticed increasing difficulty with stairs and getting out of her car, after her world had slowly shrunk because movement had become harder, Maria remembered that simple test. She wished she'd understood then what researchers have proven beyond doubt. That basic sit-to-stand test is one of the most powerful predictors of mortality, disability, and loss of independence in older adults. Welcome to Elderly Discoveries, where we explore the health insights that can truly change your life. Today we're looking at a test so simple you can do it in your living room right now, yet so scientifically validated that it predicts your health future with remarkable accuracy. The sit-to-stand test, sometimes called the chair stand test or the 30-second chair stand test, is exactly what it sounds like. You sit in a standard height chair without arms, cross your arms over your chest or keep them extended in front of you, and stand up and sit back down repeatedly, either for a set number of repetitions or for 30 seconds while someone counts how many you complete. The version most commonly used in research and clinical practice asks you to complete 5 repetitions as quickly as possible, and the time it takes you to do this is measured. That's it. No expensive equipment, no complicated procedures, no invasive tests, just you, a chair, and gravity. Yet this test reveals extraordinary information about your muscle strength, power, balance, functional capacity, and future health trajectory. Let's talk about what the research actually shows, because the findings are both sobering and motivating. A landmark study published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society followed thousands of older adults over multiple years, tracking their sit-to-stand performance and their health outcomes. What the researchers found was striking. Older adults who took longer than 15 seconds to complete 5 chair stands had significantly higher mortality rates over the following years compared to those who completed the test in under 12 seconds. The difference wasn't small. We're talking about mortality risk that was nearly double in the slowest group compared to the fastest. Another major study, this one involving over 2,000 participants, found that sit-to-stand performance was a better predictor of mortality than even some traditional measures like blood pressure or cholesterol levels. Think about that for a moment. This simple functional test was more predictive of how long people would live than the things we routinely screen for at doctors' offices. Why does this test work so well as a predictor? Because it measures something fundamental to human health and survival, especially as we age. The ability to stand up from a seated position requires adequate leg strength, particularly in your quadriceps and glutes, which are the largest muscle groups in your body. It requires power, which is your ability to generate force quickly, and power declines even faster than strength as we age. It requires balance and coordination. It requires adequate joint mobility in your ankles, knees, and hips. It requires core stability to control your trunk as you move. And it requires cardiovascular fitness because your heart and lungs have to deliver oxygen to working muscles. All of these components, strength, power, balance, mobility, and cardiovascular function, are critical determinants of your health, your independence, and your survival as you get older. When you struggle with the sit-to-stand test, it indicates that one or more of these systems is compromised. And here's the crucial connection. The same deficits that make the test difficult are the ones that lead to falls, to disability, to loss of independence, and ultimately to increased mortality. If you can't easily stand up from a chair, you're at dramatically higher risk of falling. Falls are the leading cause of injury and injury-related death in older adults. If you struggle to stand, you're likely avoiding activities that require that movement, which means you're becoming more sedentary, which accelerates muscle loss and functional decline in a vicious cycle. If your legs are too weak to stand easily, you're going to have trouble with stairs, getting in and out of cars, getting off the toilet, getting out of the bathtub, all the basic activities of daily living that define independence. Research has quantified these connections precisely. Studies show that older adults who perform poorly on the sit-to-stand test have 3 to 5 times higher rates of falls in the following year. They have significantly higher rates of hospitalization. They're more likely to require placement in assisted living or nursing homes. They have higher rates of disability, meaning they need help with basic self-care tasks. And yes, they have higher mortality rates, even after researchers control for age, chronic diseases, and other health factors. The test is capturing something essential about your body's functional reserve, your resilience, your ability to withstand the stresses and challenges that life throws at you. Now here's the empowering part. And this is where Maria's story could have gone very differently. Sit-to-stand performance is modifiable. Unlike your genetics or your age, this is something you can improve, often dramatically, with appropriate intervention. Multiple research studies have demonstrated that resistance training programs, even in people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, can significantly improve sit-to-stand performance. One study took frail elderly individuals who initially couldn't complete 5 chair stands without using their hands and put them through a 12-week strength training program focusing on leg exercises. By the end, the majority could perform the test successfully, and their times had improved by an average of 40%. 40% improvement in a measure that predicts mortality, falls, and disability. That's not a minor change. That's potentially life-saving. The exercises that improve sit-to-stand performance are straightforward. The most specific exercise is practicing the test itself. Sitting and standing repeatedly, gradually reducing hand use and increasing repetitions, directly trains the exact movement pattern and muscles involved. Squats or modified squats holding onto a counter build the quadricep and glute strength essential for standing. Leg presses in a gym setting provide resistance training for the same muscle groups. Step-ups onto a platform practice the powerful leg extension movement. Wall sits, where you hold a seated position against a wall, build isometric strength and endurance. Even simple heel raises strengthen your calves and improve ankle stability. The key is consistency and progressive overload, gradually making the exercises more challenging as you get stronger. So what should you do with this information? First, test yourself. Find a sturdy armless chair of standard height, about 17 to 18 inches from the floor. Sit down, cross your arms over your chest, and stand up and sit back down 5 times as quickly as you can while maintaining good form. Have someone time you, or video yourself and check the time. If you can complete 5 repetitions in under 12 seconds, that's excellent and indicates good functional capacity. Between 12 and 15 seconds suggests moderate function, with room for improvement. Over 15 seconds indicates significant functional limitation and higher risk, and means you should prioritize strength training. If you can't complete 5 repetitions without using your hands, or if attempting the test feels unsafe, that's important information that warrants discussion with your doctor and likely referral to physical therapy. Second, Regardless of your current performance, make lower body strengthening a non-negotiable part of your routine. This isn't optional if you want to maintain independence and health as you age. The evidence is simply too compelling. 3. Times per week. Spend 15 to 20 minutes doing exercises that challenge your leg muscles. If you're starting from a very deconditioned state, working with a physical therapist initially can ensure you're doing exercises safely and effectively. If you have good baseline function, you can follow evidence-based senior strength training, programs available through reputable sources, or work with a qualified personal trainer who understands older adult exercise. Third, retest yourself regularly, perhaps every 3 months. Tracking your progress is motivating, and it gives you objective feedback about whether your exercise program is working. If your time is improving, you know you're on the right track. If it's staying the same or worsening despite exercise, that's a signal to increase intensity, seek professional guidance, or discuss with your doctor whether there might be underlying health issues affecting your strength. Fourth, understand that this test is part of a bigger picture. It doesn't exist in isolation. Good nutrition, particularly adequate protein intake to support muscle maintenance, matters enormously. Managing chronic conditions like diabetes and heart disease that can affect muscle function is important. Getting adequate sleep, which is when your body repairs and builds muscle, makes a difference. Avoiding prolonged sedentary behavior throughout the day helps maintain function. Maria eventually did start a strength training program after her fall, working with a physical therapist who understood exactly what that struggle with the chair stand test had been indicating 2 years earlier. Within 6 months, she could complete 5 chair stands in 11 seconds. She felt steadier on her feet. Stairs became manageable again. She returned to activities she'd gradually abandoned. She regained confidence in her body. Most importantly, she changed her health trajectory. The path she was on, toward increasing disability and dependence, shifted toward maintained function and independence. That simple test in the community center was offering Maria a glimpse into her future, a warning sign that she had the opportunity to heed. The sit-to-stand test isn't just predicting mortality in some abstract statistical sense. It's revealing the functional foundation that determines how you'll live your later years. Strong legs that can lift you from a chair again and again aren't just about that specific movement. They're about your ability to navigate the world, to care for yourself, to remain independent, to avoid the cascade of disability that leads to loss of quality and quantity of life. The test is simple, but what it measures is profound. And the best news of all is that you have the power to change your results.